Every so often, we hear of cities that experience emergency situations of one kind or another, be it hurricanes, flooding, earthquakes, fires, etc. So obviously, municipalities need to be prepared to respond to these ahead of time. So how is Lethbridge prepared for an emergency? Well, today's guest is going to share how you can be part of the answer. Jamie Anderson is the Emergency Planning Administrator with the City of Lethbridge. Welcome, Jamie. Great to have you with me today.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to talk emergency social services.
Okay, well, it's good that you're excited to talk about emergencies. It means that you are prepared and you're also passionate about it. So, Jamie, our city has something called the Emergency Social Services Team, or ESS for short, right? So, can you maybe give us a brief overview of what this team is about?
Yeah, you betcha. So, the emergency social services team fits within the broader emergency management portfolio. So, responding to disasters, like you mentioned earlier. But the emergency social services team specifically focuses on the people. So, evacuees, how are we providing the basic essentials that people would need in a time of disaster to get back and reestablish themselves as quickly as possible to their day-to-day lives?
Okay, so you are looking for local volunteers who have already a certain amount of skills, I guess, that they can offer to the city in an emergency situation. But I guess volunteers also need to go through a certain amount of training. So, what kind of training needs to be completed by these volunteers?
Yeah, you betcha. So for prerequisites, we kind of like to say, if you have that willingness to learn and the passion to help other people, that's the prerequisite. We have lots of volunteers who do come with predetermined skill sets and careers that are very focused, but we provide all of the training that would be needed in order to respond in an emergency social services capacity. So we do monthly micro learns, so 1 hour once a month, and we also do tabletop exercises and integration into the broader planning. So we get to do exercises with the emergency management team when they do their full scale exercises. But we do run the program based on incident command system, which is the command system that is used for emergencies in the province of Alberta. So training in ICS, or incident command system, is a requirement, and we provide that as well.
Okay, what kind of time commitment are we looking at for volunteers?
Yeah, so typically speaking, we look at about 12 hours annually. So that accommodates the 1 hour micro learns once a month. There are other times when additional time might be committed, and that could be in a response event. So if we do have something happening in the city, that would mean more time. And we have the ICS training to get people up and running. And that is an on your own time training, or we offer it in person. Um, and that is about a 2 day commitment. So to get up and running, it's about 2 days to get all the knowledge, but then a monthly micro learn, so 1 hour once.
Yeah, I bet that's an intense couple of days there. Pack it all in. I understand. Yeah, I understand, Jamie, that you need people who can maybe assist individuals and families who have been displaced from their homes to find shelter and accommodation. What kind of occupations or experience would someone need to fill this role?
Absolutely. So that is kind of our primary focus. Again, if someone has been displaced from their homes, how are we making sure that they have what they need in that basic requirement? So that could be shelter, it could be food, it could be clothing if that's required, or it could be specialized services. We build the program, and then we train people to operate within that program. So there really isn't any specialized skill set that you need when you come to the table. It's just that willingness to help and that willingness to learn. Um, More and more, we see that emergency social services is a community response. And so, in a time of event in other communities, we have this outpouring of community members that want to support their neighbors. And we wanted to take a proactive approach to that and say, we would like to have people trained so that they're feeling comfortable when they come to the table if they do want to help their neighbors in that time of event.
Yeah, and I guess in emergencies, people need food, clothing. So would you be looking for people with professional experience, maybe in food prep necessarily?
No, not necessarily. So the way that we have structured the program is based on agreements and MOUs that we have with uh, industry specialists throughout the city. So really, we're the facilitators. We're getting the information from evacuees to say what is the service that you need, or what are the requirements that you need in order to reestablish yourself to that baseline, or to get you through this event. And so we connect people to those resources, and we provide registration for them so that they are able to access certain resources, but we don't need to be the specialists in those resources.
Okay, interesting. I guess with that said, usually, if disasters do take place, there can be a very real impact or a toll on people's emotional health. So, would it maybe make sense to have an emotional and psychological support available to people who might be experiencing trauma or distress? So, would you necessarily be looking for trained counselors or mental health professionals?
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest things that we see is, this is obviously going to be the worst day of someone's life when they're coming to meet us. So we really look at taking an empathetic approach, and making sure that we're welcoming. But again, we don't need to be the experts, but we need to know the experts to get people connected with them. So we have a strong relationship with a number of different agencies throughout the community who do specialize in trauma supports, and specialize in that emotional and psychological wellness capacity in different specialized areas. So, be it seniors or children, or anywhere in between, we really want to connect people with the subject matter experts, while providing that warm, welcoming approach that we can offer.
That's awesome. Are there other cities using a similar approach, like having a team of trained volunteers on standby?
Yeah, absolutely. So, providing an emergency social services response is part of the overall emergency management portfolio. So, it is a requirement for municipalities. And a lot of municipalities tackle this in house. So, we do have staff members who are ESS volunteers as well, in addition to their day to day jobs. But what we see, again, as I mentioned earlier, this outpouring of community response. When something happens, be it in our community, or if we have another community evacuating um, to our area, and we saw that with Jasper when they were evacuated
Okay,
last summer, and
right,
um, Fort McMurray when they evacuated a few
right.
years ago.
I remember
Um,
High River as well.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they a lot of the refugees, I guess, if you want to call them, that had to come and live at the U of L. Yeah, so that's kind of what we're talking about here, right?
yeah, that's exactly what we're talking about. And when we see that, um, you know, people people have a desire to help out. They really want to make sure that, when someone is coming to our community, or when people are in a time of need, that there's this real outpouring of love and support. And that's usually where volunteers come from. So what we are trying to do is we're trying to proactively train volunteers, so that in that moment, people are feeling more comfortable, and they're feeling more successful in the systems and the processes that we have in place to support evacuees. And that will allow us um, to focus on kind of the wellness piece of it. And we're not trying to learn the documentation piece or the paperwork piece while we're helping people who are struggling.
Okay, evacuees. That was the word I was looking for. I called them refugees. The evacuees. Okay, so I know for sure Lethbridge has helped evacuees from, like, I remember Medicine Hat, was it the summer of 2013, I believe, that big flood. So Medicine Hat was affected, High River, Calgary. Has Lethbridge ever undergone a situation like this where there was maybe flooding or fires or anything in the past?
So the thing is, there could be catalyst for a response, regardless of it making that kind of large scale media impact, right? So it could be an apartment building that maybe is evacuated. It could be a senior center that's evacuated. We really The way that we are activated is through our director of emergency management. So if we hit a capacity where people can't meet the needs themselves, or where our city departments operationally cannot support the need, then we activate emergency social services, and we can support from there.
I know, exactly. What about first aid? I would imagine that would that be part of that 2-day training?
So first aid is one of those things that we wouldn't do ourselves, but would facilitate that response. So if someone is in medical need, we defer to the experts, and we would be calling 911, or we would be supporting that way. Um, but understanding what needs might be there, or understanding where something might escalate, that's what we train in, and that's what we are aware of as volunteers.
Have you personally ever had to undergo a municipal emergency
I
or help
have. I
with
have
one?
been I have been in several municipalities who have had different levels of activation. I have seen like trying to think of examples. So I've seen smaller scale activation where we have had seniors facilities who have had to evacuate and needed a place to go. Um, in that scenario, if it's a couple of hours, maybe we would open up a reception center where people can just go and get warm, or cool off in the summertime, and wait until the circumstances abate, I guess. There are also proactive measures, right? Again, when we have evacuees from other communities that are coming um, into our area, we could see an activation for that as well. So it doesn't even need to be a disaster or an emergency situation impacting our city specifically, but we could activate to support our neighbors as well.
Right. I would imagine that an area also where some help might be needed might look little bit more administrative, but very necessary, possibly helping reuniting family members and establishing communication between them. I can see that being kind of a scary situation, or maybe setting up a system where people can register for assistance and get questions answered about what kind of helps are available for them.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that keys in on really what we focus on. So we do have a reunification program, and we have a plan in place that we would teach volunteers how to take the information and share the information in a way that is compliant with different legislation pieces on sharing people's personal information. But we also, again, that's why it's so critical that we focus on the registration piece. Is how are we knowing who is within our system, who needs help, and how are we reuniting them with the people that they love, or the people that might be looking for them? Because you're right, it can be very chaotic when people are evacuating um, situations like fires or floods, and they're getting out in a hurry. Maybe cell phone batteries have gone dead. How many of us remember all those key phone numbers off the top of our heads anymore? So being able to provide that reunification is really important.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the big emergency that comes to my mind is the Los Angeles fires. Nowhere close to us right now, but it really makes you think about everything that can go wrong. I mean, pets getting lost. You heard stories about that. There are pets getting lost in the shuffle. So maybe do we have people that you're looking for that maybe have skills in those areas that want to volunteer to provide animal care?
Yep, yep. Companion animal programming is another area that we do have a specialized program for, and that goes anywhere from how are we keeping people with their companion animals if they're sheltered with us? How are we supporting by keeping animals if they can't be sheltered together? Or how are we retrieving animals if someone is maybe working out of town for the day and they can't get back to their homes? How are we making sure that those animals are accounted for as well? So a lot of you asked about administrative responsibilities earlier. A lot of what we do is that administrative component, taking the information and tracking it in a way that we can use it and make it functional, and then making sure that we are able to tell the story of the event after the fact. So the administrative piece is kind of the biggest piece that we work on. And again, we do all of the training for that. We'll teach people how to use the forms and how the programs work. Um, they just need to have that willingness to want to help out.
Yeah, definitely. What about donations? I would imagine a lot of times donations come in during times of crisis. Would that mean that you would need someone to help receive and assess and process and distribute those donated goods? Are you mostly working with, an organization like Red Cross or whatnot, or the other nonprofits in town?
Yeah, so we do have some agreements in place that account for donations. Like you said, sometimes if it's the middle of winter and people don't have the appropriate clothing to change out of, or and need that change of clothing, we would provide that. So we do have agreements in place that would support that, but there is opportunity that we would have volunteers that would be supporting that process, right? Understanding what people need, how to get them what they need, if that's not something that's readily available, and then you never know when when donations might come in that we're not expecting, right? We saw that with Fort McMurray, where there were truckloads of teddy bears that were going up. And what do we do with millions of teddy bears if that's one of the things that we have to deal with, right? So those are definitely pieces that we do have plans in place for and that we would train for.
Yeah, that's awesome. Before I let you go here, when's the next training opportunity if any viewers are interested in joining? How should people contact you?
Yeah, you betcha. So the next training opportunity is this Thursday at noon at City Hall in the Culver Room. So that's right on the main floor, and someone at the front desk could get you pointed in the right direction. And it is welcome to join. So for this one, we are focusing on the registration form. So as a volunteer, what would that registration form look like that you're helping people through the process of? We started our training for this intake session in January, but there is opportunity to get caught up in the sessions that have already gone by. And if there are questions, please feel free to reach out. ess@lethbridge.ca is the email address.
How often do these opportunities come up to join?
Um,
Like
that is dependent.
if we air this past Thursday, say,
Yeah,
is it every 3 months, every 4 months, or once a year, twice a year?
it kind of depends on when we get that intake of people. If we had 10 people that wanted to join as a result, we would offer a 1 day kind of crash course training session that would get people up to speed again. So there are um, we respond right away and say, like, our next intake session, you will be in it. We can get people started on their online trainings, but then kind of that in-person stuff we would do every probably twice a year is what it seems to be working out to be. But
Great information here for us, Jamie. Thanks so much for being with us. Appreciate all the information and something I certainly didn't know that we had in place here in Lethbridge, but appreciate having you on today.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Jamie Anderson is the Emergency Planning Administrator with the City of Lethbridge. I'm Jeanette Roche on behalf of all of us here at Bridge City News. Thanks so much for watching.